Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Louise Kelly and I'm from ATI Mirage. So my talk this morning is on, it's this afternoon, isn't it? Maximising the daily efforts of employees. Now hopefully you've all got two handouts on your seat. There should be a yellow one which is just a series of checklists that you can use, and then there's a handout, a white handout that's a few pages that I've put together, just sort of condenses down what today's talk's about. So you've all got that? Good. All right, lovely. Did you want to move forwards a bit, or are you more comfortable being at the back? Okay, that's fine. All right, lovely. Okay. So first of all, what I'd like to do is just to show you the context of what I'm here to talk about. There's a lot of small businesses out there that the owners quite often work in the business, and they're so busy working in the business that they don't actually have enough time to spend working on the business. So what about this statistic here? 95% of a company's employees are unaware of or do not understand its strategy. So you may not even have set a strategy in place if you have your own business. It may have just grown, expanded, and you're just trying to keep up all the time. Is there anybody in that situation? Show of hands. Okay, all right. So today is a bit of time out for you to actually think about your business a little bit objectively, stand back, analyse it. All right, well, hopefully I'll be able to help you with some ideas that you can take back to your business and some things that you can do with your staff so that you're setting a clear plan of action and you're aligning their actions with what your vision is for your business. All right, now this 95% there, how many of you would actually agree with that? So, quick show of hands. You're in that category? Generally, in the businesses that you've worked in, any business, would you say that's pretty much true? Staff aren't aligned? Okay, I've worked for one business where the staff were aligned and lots of businesses where they weren't. It's quite interesting, the difference in the engagement with your staff and what propels them beyond when they need to do something, when you really need them. Right, what we're going to do is we're going to go through for about 40 minutes and then I'm going to leave about 5 minutes at the end if you've got any questions. I work for ATI Mirage and we do quite a lot of different courses, so if you are a small or medium business enterprise and you think that you might want to talk through some things, we've got lots of ideas that can help you with developing your business plan and how you go about these things. We're going to make a start with the vision for your business, and this is where a lot of businesses fall down, is because their vision isn't crystal clear to the staff. The owner or operator or the people who start up the business, they might have a vision, but do all your staff know it? Can they live it, breathe it? Do they know exactly what that vision is? It may even be that your vision started out at one thing, and because of developments, technological changes, progress, global things, your business has actually changed and your vision hasn't kept up to date with it. So your starting point is looking at your vision and making sure that it is something that is very transparent and easily conveyed to everybody that you speak to. See if you can try and condense it down to a very short 2-minute speech about what your business actually is about. What is your vision? From that, you set your goals. It's a case of working backwards. Know what you want, and then break it down into chunks, working backwards so you get there. So break it down into goals, and these are best done with your staff because your staff are the experts. They're the ones out there doing things. They're the ones that can help you establish what those goals are. There's no point in you just from up high thinking, okay, these are our goals, I'll get our staff onto it. You need to actually work out with them whether they're doable, and that's very important. So shortly I'm just going to go through how to set a SMART goal with your staff, because that's a model that has been successful for a long time, very basic framework so that you cover all bases. So you're going to create your action plans that feed into the goals, that feed into your vision, and all of the daily efforts of your staff feed back into that. So what we're doing, and this is a different way of looking at it, is looking at your strategic planning. So your starting point is your vision. Where do you want to go? Now the picture there of the girl with the archery, that's very deliberate. If you were actually doing some archery, I don't know how to do it. Does anybody here know how to do archery? Okay, so what you're doing is you don't just shoot at any old target. You actually have to see where the target is. You have to line it up and you have to work out, will this shot get to where that target is? So you've got to look at the target first, which is your vision, and then work out what your line of shot's going to be to get there. So your vision has to be clear. You then set your long-term outcomes. Where do you want to be? Try and work out 2 to 5 years ahead, and then you will need to adapt and review those plans quite frequently to make sure you're still on track, or whether you need to change them. Things happen. There could be a GFC. It could be a war. It could be a change in legislation. It could be, I don't know, a riot. It could be a famine. Lots of things that can happen that you may need to then change and adapt to what's going on. For instance, my brother a long time ago, he spent quite a bit of money on this brand new thing that came out. And what it was like an LP. It was sort of like a video, but on like a disc thing. I don't know if you ever saw them. Okay, well, it never actually took off anywhere else. You know, there are things that you can spend time and money on doing, and you may actually have to change your plans and keep up to date with what's happening. And then from those long-term outcomes, you set your short-term goals, and these need to be reviewed at a very frequent basis. So I'm going to break that down. So our starting point is vision. So I've put it down there in the middle for your vision. I want you to take a few minutes now just to think about what your vision is for your business. Please use the back of the paper, scribble a few notes. Try and put down a few key words that mean something to you with your business. What words resonate with you that you feel strongly attached to do with your business? What are you in the business for? When you set your vision, it's a future state. What would you like to be? What would you like to be remembered for? What makes you different from your competitors? So just a few key words. Okay, I'm going to ask a few of you to shout out what your words are. They're words that mean something to you, to do with where your business, where you'd like it to be. What have we got? Can you say a few words?
To be profitable, offer a good service and quality products.
Okay, good's a very satisfactory, mediocre word. You could lift it a bit higher.
Excellent service.
Yes, okay, that's better. Good to me is a bit pedestrian. Anne?
Freedom.
You want freedom. That's your vision.
Yeah.
Okay, any other words associated with that?
Creativity.
Okay.
Passion.
Oh, great word. And that's a word that your staff would respond to. It's a powerful word. What have you got? Key words.
Me?
Yeah.
Lifestyle.
Okay. Is that like work-life balance or?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Other words around the room. Can I have somebody from over here? Support. Anything else?
Excellent.
All right, okay. So defining your vision is actually quite a long process. You'll need to run through a few versions of it and refine it. And it's best refined with your staff. You're all on track for the same thing. So what are your values? What is your vision? What do you see your future as being? What makes you different from your competitors? What do you want to be remembered for? So that's your starting point. After your vision, you actually then look at where you are now. You need to analyse your current reality. How do you find out what your current reality is? What are some of your ways of finding out what's real? How can you measure it? Sales? Yeah? Return business? What else? Great, customer feedback. And it might even also be other stakeholders' feedback, community feedback, media reports, it could be external auditors. There's lots of different ways of you getting an idea of how your business is going. There is some ideas in those handouts that I gave you as well that will also give you a way of measuring what's going on in your business, monitoring it. So find out what your current reality is. So what we're going to do is a very simple gap analysis. Where are you now? Where do you want to be? What's going to fill that gap in the middle? So that's our next step, is looking at the options. What's going to get you travelling from where you are now to where you want to be? What do you need to put in place, and what's the time frame for putting it in place? And does something need to be done before something else? Is there a certain sequence that you need to set in place with those options? Right, so you've worked out how you're going to get from now to your vision. You need to break it down further into your goals. So establish your goals with your staff so that they become part of the solution. Use your staff to find the solution. Work it out with them. How do we get from where we are to where we want to be? There has to be some buy-in from them, or you're just not going to get the same results. So have some talks with them. In one of those handouts, there's a whole list of different ways, different forums that you can use to communicate with your staff. A lot of businesses make the mistake of assuming their staff know what they want. And I don't know if they assume it must happen psychically, but when you ask the staff say, oh no, I don't know, no one told me. It may be the method that you've chosen. They say that 80% of business today is conducted via email, which to me is one of the least effective methods of communication. When you're face to face with somebody, you see their facial expressions. You see whether they like something, don't like something. You see whether they get it. You then modify your avenue and your way in. You can also consider other avenues that may take people by surprise. Some different ways of communicating with them. So establish your goals with your staff, and we're going to use SMART goals. And then what you do is you create action plans from those goals. So with your action plan, you'll have a time frame for implementation of what you're going to do. For instance, it may be that you recognise that your staff could do with more training on using Outlook, because you're not using it effectively in the business for keeping appointments, calendar dates, sharing calendars, giving people reminders and stuff like that. You realise you could be more effective. So you've set that as a goal to increase your communication. You're going to send your staff on some Outlook training. So you need to work out when you can send them and how often. If you're a small business, you can't have all your staff going at once or the business has got to close down. So you've got to schedule it in. And it may even have to fit in with your financial year or times of year. So work out your action plan, including your time. Right, just reviewing what we've looked at and looking at it in a slightly different format. We're working backwards from your vision. You've got your big picture, your goals, your aspirations, short-term goals, weekly planning, and then you're breaking it back down into daily planning. But all of these things feed into the vision, and your staff need to know how they feed back. So what I'm going to do is just very quickly go through a case study with you of a business that I worked for a while. My background is mainly from the airlines, and I had 10 years with Ansett. Is anybody here ex-Ansett? No? Anybody close friends, family with somebody who was ex-Ansett?
Friends.
Yeah? Okay, because usually somebody in Perth's there's a very strong connection usually. All right, so Ansett was quite a remarkable company for having its staff all focused in the same direction. Even 10 years after its collapse, the staff still stay in touch and there's still a very strong bond. Now that bond was deliberately nurtured and created. And one of the things that Ansett did do well is it conveyed its vision very clearly to its staff. It used every opportunity it could to reinforce that vision, whether it was through posters, face-to-face briefings, any kind of material that staff came into contact with. But what happened on a daily basis, the cabin managers had to, at the briefing at the beginning of the day, run through how the staff were going to do something that fitted in with the values. So these were the values that were identified. The top three were the most important ones, the core ones. So treat me as an individual, ease, consistency. The last three became increasingly important with the class that the passengers chose to fly. All right, so each day at briefing, I was a cabin manager, you would ask the crew, you'd say, all right, what are we going to do today? What's going to be our vision for the day? And it would actually come from the staff. It was actually a culture of doing this. It happened every day automatically. So, for instance, it could be during school holidays. So the crew might say, somebody might make a suggestion, look, school holidays, there's going to be a lot more mothers travelling with children. How are we going to look after the mums and bubs? How does that fit in with these values here? So you'd get staff making suggestions. You'd have somebody saying, all right, well, I'm this position, so what I'll do is I'll do the meet and greet and I'll take the bags off the mothers, because usually they're travelling with nappies and food and stuff like that. Now, as a flight attendant, you're not actually meant to carry the baby in case you drop it. You're meant to carry the bags. All right, so you'd have somebody offering to take the bags. You'd have somebody offering to pre-seat them, to get them settled in before the rest of the passengers, because that fitted in with the ease, because it not just made it easier for the mothers and babies, it actually made it easier for all the other passengers. Because can you imagine what it would be like trying to board the plane if the mothers are trying to park and stuff like that? And then you'd have things like whoever's in the galley say things like, all right, well, I'll do their meals early so that they get a chance to feed the child before themselves. And you'd have somebody saying, like, I'll cut up the food so they can eat with just one hand. You'd have somebody saying, like, I'll take the kids to the toilets. And then when you're getting off, disembarking. But what they would be doing is every action that they did would fit in with these different goals of the business. All right, I want you to think about what your vision is, what your goals are, and how you can make that real and vivid for your staff. What actions can they do on a daily basis that actually feeds back into that vision? If you've got any ideas, put them on the piece of paper before we move on. Last week, I was helping run a strategic planning meeting for an oil and gas company. And it was quite interesting. At the beginning of each day, they started it with a thing called a safety moment. Is anybody familiar with that? Safety moment? Okay. Now, I hadn't come across it before, and it's quite common in any kind of occupation that's a little bit dangerous, resources and stuff like that. And what it was somebody would mention something that they were going to share with everybody else and get their input and the ideas. And the idea behind it was just to have like a quiet moment, just sort of thinking about the consequences of maybe what could have happened, what should have happened, and all of those kind of things. And the idea was for it to become part of everyday life. And what I saw in that was there was actually a culture of safety awareness, and it's because it was lived and breathed on a daily basis. And that's what I'm encouraging you to do, is to think how your daily actions feed back into that vision. What can you do that lets your staff know that what they're doing does feed back into that vision? Oh, just for your own interest, those values that Ansett had, the most common ones in the world are to do with price, speed, quality and ease. Make it easy for your customer. Because that's what you're in the business for, or you won't have a business. You have to keep those customers coming back. If you're in project management, you've got the three-legged stool. Quality, quantity and time. Yeah, those kind of criteria. All right, what we've got here now, and this diagram's in your handout, is the planning process. So we've already gone through now vision, options, goals, action plans. Now we need to consider what we need to do to monitor your progress and make adjustments. So to monitor your progress, you actually have to have some standards in place. You have to have your benchmark. How many of you have actually got standard procedures in place that you can use as a benchmark? Put your hands up if you have. All right, now the ones that haven't put your hands up, is it because there's not that many staff? What's the reasoning behind it? How do you know that your staff are on track? How do you measure them? Performance appraisals. Have you got a measurement? It's missing in a lot of businesses. All right, so monitor the progress, have some sort of benchmark, some way of weighing up what they're doing. You also need to make adjustments as things go on. For instance, if you're not meeting your customer requirements, work out with the staff why not. It might not be that they're lazy. It might be that you haven't enabled them. So one of the things that you need to do is work out any of the roadblocks that you have and the obstacles that get in their way. I taught at TAFE for about 5 years, and there were a lot of cutbacks. It was becoming much more of a business than an education centre. And one of the cutbacks was on computers. They worked out that they needed 3 computers for every full-time staff, and that should be enough. And we were told to hot desk. I don't know if you've ever been through hot desking, but it's revolting. People like to take ownership of a computer and a desk space. It makes them feel that they're part of it. Apart from that, if you're a left-hander, it's really hard. So they made these cutbacks, and what happened was there were people queuing to go on the computers because all the work had to be done on the computer. It had to be entered electronically. And there were actually quite a lot of conflict happening between the staff because they couldn't get onto the computer and use it when they needed it. Because there was a big queue before classes started, there was a queue at breaks, there was a queue at lunch. It ended up being an obstacle. And yet from an efficiency point of view, that was seen as something that was quite smart to cut down on service, maintenance and things like that. So find out from your staff, what are the obstacles getting in the way? What are their roadblocks? Go back to those different communication methods that I've listed in that handout for some ideas. So you monitor the progress, you let your staff know how they're doing, if they're doing well or not, and then you must celebrate your success. You need to let them know that they're doing a good job. SMART goals. This is used all over the world as a framework for setting goals. It's used in project management, it's used in HR, it's used a lot for performance appraisals. I'm sure most of you are familiar with this. Now, the idea behind SMART is that because it gives you a bit of a watertight framework for what you're doing. So with it, you set a goal that is very specific. You make sure that there's some way of measuring that goal. Usually it's you've done it or you've not done it. You make sure that it's achievable or attainable, they can actually do it. Not only that, it's got to be realistic for their skills, their ability and the time frame. So the 4-minute mile is an achievable goal because somebody's done it. Somebody has run the 4-minute mile. Okay, now, Anne, if you're my boss and you said to me, Louise, I'm setting you this goal, I want you to run the 4-minute mile. Okay, so it's specific, it's measurable. You know if you've done it or not. It is achievable because someone's done it, but it's not actually realistic or relevant to give it to me unless you give me maybe a week to get fit. Right? Yeah? Okay, optimism. All right, so you have to make sure that it's actually relevant for them, and that's why it needs to be a two-way conversation. It needs to be a discussion with the staff member. Is it something they can actually do? They need to pinpoint and feel comfortable pinpointing any of the obstacles in the way. You also need to give them some sort of time frame for doing it. You need to make it nice and tight. Don't let these goals just be a goal. For instance, I'm renovating at home at the moment. Well, I'm not, my boyfriend is. I wish I'd set a time frame because it's now a year later, and that's my fault. No time frame with it. So project manage it. So set a time frame which might be end of financial year, next quarter, in the next 12 months. There needs to be some kind of time frame. Otherwise, it slips and it isn't a tight goal. Okay, reasons for measuring performance. Lots and lots of different reasons for measuring performance. One, you get to manage what's going on in your business. You get to see what's actually happening. Two, if there is a deficiency or you can see somebody can be groomed, maybe you see potential in them, there's opportunities there for coaching to get them to where you need them to be. And for a lot of people, it's confidence. You also got the opportunity to develop not only the individual, but your team. Two very different things, developing the individual and developing the team. Looking at your organisation also gives you an opportunity to evaluate what's actually going on as opposed to what you think's going on. It's a very different thing. Now, this is quite an interesting little bit of information here. It's to do with where your organisational focus is. And this has come from Bernstein and Associations, and I thought it was quite interesting. It compared high-performing organisations with low-performing organisations, and it was to do with where they develop their capabilities. So what they found was Organisations that focused on the actual organisation as a whole capabilities, so capabilities, competencies, a whole run of different things like that. The ones that focused on organisation and they looked at leadership competencies, management skills and personal growth, they actually performed much higher than the organisations that invested on more tactical ones. So, you know, the job-specific skills, the technical prowess. You know, when people go, okay, I need to go on an Excel training course, it needs to fit in with the overall strategic plan of the business to get that business growth, that organisational development. Okay, so it may be that there needs to be a business case for the different things that staff want to do. It has to fit in with what that vision actually is. And this was quite an alarming statistic I found here. What have we got here? Nearly 40% of businesses have no formal standards, no measurement, no benchmark. And I think that was reflected in what I saw earlier with your show of hands there. So it's nearly half of all businesses haven't got a way of measuring what's going on in their business. So there's lots of reasons why they haven't measured it. Have a look at your yellow handout and you'll see there's a few checklists there. Now I've put them in so that you can actually do a self-assessment on your business and try and work out where your deficiencies are and where you need to focus. What's going to give you the most bang for your buck? Right, now when you are setting your goals with your staff, one of the things that you need to do is get some buy-in with them. And you need to know what motivates them. Basic principles of motivation. Motivation meaning to move people. They usually either move away from something that they don't want or don't like, or move towards something that they do want or do like. So it's usually moving away from pain, moving towards pleasure. This little slide here is to do with high-performing teams, and it's taken from Ken Blanchard's work on high-performing teams, and it's a nice little model because it's a bit of a framework for thinking. And my idea of talking to you today was actually to provoke some ideas with you of things that you could look at with your business that you might not have looked at in this frame before. Okay, so when we're looking at perform model, we're looking at, are your staff clear on their purpose? Do you need to sit down with them and go back on what your purpose is? Because it may have even changed. You also need to let them feel empowered. By letting them have some say in what the action plans and goals are for the future, they will feel empowered. It also is an opportunity for you to remove some of those roadblocks that stop them. Relationship and communication. Are there any problems there? Have you had time to look at your staff? Do you know what's really going on? How do you tell who gets on with who? Who's got an easy relationship and who's got a strained relationship? Do you know the reason behind it? What can you do about it? What's the source of conflict in your workplace? So think about relationship and communication. Do you think they feel quite open to approach you? Do they trust you? Can they approach you? Flexibility, give and take, and then thinking about your optimal productivity. Your staff are usually your best solution. What can they do to enable that? You also need to show recognition and appreciation, and that needs to be on a very frequent basis. Now, where I work at the moment at ATI Mirage, we've got a lot of different things in place. Most of them are quite informal. In fact, all of them are, but they're fun. The staff have fun. So I'll just go through a few of the things that we've got. The most memorable thing we've got is the fuzzy flower. Now, Vicky at the back works with me. You've been the recipient of the fuzzy flower a few times. Can you describe it, Vicky, the fuzzy flower?
It's like a big blue and...
It's huge.
Orange, yeah, and orange.
It's made of fabric and it's fluffy.
It's fluffy, it's fuzzy, and it's got a smiley face on it. It's adorable.
Okay.
And you put it on your desk for pride.
Yeah, you do. So all staff get an email saying why somebody has now got the fuzzy flower. And it's awarded from a staff member to another staff member when they've seen them do something above and beyond. So, Vicky, what was yours for when you got it last time?
It was helping to do, when we were launching a new website, doing a little proofreading.
Yeah, so anything that steps you outside of your normal thing. And it's not come from management, it's come from other staff. Now, you can only keep it for a week, and then you've got to find somebody to pass it on for. So it's a quick rotation, and it's a bit of fun. So an email will go around to all staff saying why somebody got it. It's put on your desk, and it's a source of... people start talking, there's lots of jokes and banter going on around it. It's a bit of fun. The other thing that we've got is Fig Jam. I'll leave that one alone. We've also got Employee of the Year. That usually happens at Christmas time, and that might be some cash or something like that. We've got lots of social events. Every quarter we do something. We've gone lawn bowls. We've bought a Wii for the office. What else? Golf.
I don't know about the Fig Jam.
Fig Jam? I'll tell you later.
Like Fig Jam.
Oh, and there's also at Christmas time, once a year we do Dipstick of the Year. So there's things that accumulate during the year. So there's a bit of banter going on with that. We do Corporate Challenge, so we do some fitness. We also do Soup Kitchen quite regularly, so we do some community stuff. It gets staff away from work mixing together. When we do Corporate Challenge, we deliberately mix up people from IT, operations, HR, admin, sales, get everybody mixed up together so you see each other in a different light and you work together differently. It breaks down a lot of the build-up that you get when you see somebody outside of work. So recognition and appreciation is important, and morale. Okay, how do you know what your morale's like in your workplace? How do you know? What are your measures? Right, breaking down motivation a little bit further, I'm going to look at 4 things to do with motivation that we can look at here. We're going to look at financial, physical, social and intrinsic. I'll just go through them quickly. So the first one, financial motivator. These are a couple of things that people look for. Obviously they want financial rewards, but they can get that from any job. What makes your job differently? They do expect to be paid the going rate. So if you don't know what the going rate is, find out, because your staff will. And they also want job security. The trend has been away from permanency. People have gone for more casual positions, more part-time positions and more contract. But it changes what happens in the workplace to do with loyalty and to do with what people are prepared to do. If they haven't got job security from you and they can get it from somebody else, they're likely to move. It could be a factor in them moving on. And retaining staff is such a big issue here in WA at the moment. We've also got physical factors that can actually get in the way of what you're doing. You've got your financial workspace. Do people feel crammed? Have they got enough room to do with what they're doing? Have they got enough tools and resources? And it might be, and I've worked with lots of businesses that are still operating on Windows XP. No. Yeah, or they're operating on 2003, and they haven't got the ribbon thing on 2007 or 2010. And the staff aren't able to keep up to date. They want to keep their skills up to date, but they've got slow systems, or they've got security settings that go on forever, or systems that crash. You know, it's going to tire your staff out. And this is another big problem that we've got, is having enough workers to do the job. There's been a lot of downsizing where a job of three people used to do the job, now 2 people are doing it. So lots of issues there with having enough workers. The other issue is actually attracting the right people, the right skill set, and getting them to stay. How do you keep your staff happy? How do you become an employer of choice so that people actually queue to work for you? It's possible. There's certainly a lot of research done on it. You can see how the high performers do and what they do differently. Then the third one is looking at the social factors with motivation, and this is your work-life balance. So are they living to work or working to live? Was that what? I've said that wrong, haven't I? Live to work or work to live. Yeah. Some people were expected to do incredibly long hours. The business I was working with last week, the staff on average clock up 14 hours a day. You can only keep that up for so long. You're going to get burnout, you're going to get stress, you're going to get conflict. People don't see things in such a reasoned way when they haven't had enough time to relax and unwind. You can do some work-life balance initiatives in your workplace, and it might be encouraging your staff to do a lunchtime walk. Now, you said work-life balance is important to you. Have you got any initiatives currently running or anything you'd like to implement?
Nothing.
Are you working long hours at the moment?
Yep.
Right, okay. It could be people want a status or a title. Now, have a think about your staff's current titles. Do you think that it might change the way they look at their job if you gave them a different title? It is possible.
Sandwich artist in some way.
Yeah.
Sandwich artist.
Yeah, it's much more attractive, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, so maybe reviewing what their titles are and working out with them, does this reflect current practice? What would you rather be called? Is there a different thing that you'd rather be having? Maybe even giving them some business cards. These are things that make people feel more motivated. They actually think, oh. It could also be giving them sort of recognition, so the awards, letting them know they're doing a good job, and showing effective leadership. So these are all big motivations. In fact, one of the biggest reasons for people leaving their job is because they didn't feel that their boss was showing effective leadership, so they've gone elsewhere. And then lastly, we're going to look at the fourth one, which is intrinsic internal motivators. So feeling respect. Do you show respect for your staff? How do you do that? Do you listen to them? Do you allow them to do things? Do you allow them to take time off when they need time off and trust them? Do you allow them to make mistakes and fix it themselves? Do you let them know what you respect them for? Also, treating your staff fairly. There may be some that you find harder to deal with and you treat them slightly differently. There's maybe some people that go really out of your way to help and the others might feel slighted. I'll give you an example. When I was at TAFE, I was one of very few people that didn't have children. And I used to get really, really worked up over the fact that the people who had children used to get time off just like that, or get their rosters arranged around their kids, whereas I couldn't get the roster arranged around things I wanted to do. So to me, that wasn't fair. So it's what your staff see as fair. It's feeling appreciated. So it's not a case of even just saying thank you. It could be, thank you, Vicky, for working late on Friday night and getting that report out, because it meant that we could go straight into it on Monday morning. Appreciate you staying behind, particularly as it was Friday night and the end of the week. It's much better than just saying thanks. Let people know what it is you appreciate for. And give them autonomy so that they have the power to do things that they can do. Give them some degree of that. And self-actualisation is all to do with the, feeling self-fulfilled. Does the job fulfil them? Does it fit in with their own personal values? That's putting it all together. So these are the four areas, the four key areas of motivation. And there's a copy of this in that handout that I've given you. And I just quickly want to run through engagement hierarchy and a few questions you need to think about with your staff. What is my job? Can I do it? This goes back to what we looked at earlier with your vision. They need to know what's expected of them with their role. On that line, I run a lot of training courses to do with communication and leadership. And something that I often have from staff is they haven't got a current job description.
Everything. That's the job description.
Everything.
They'll do everything.
Okay. You need to have some form of measurement. What are they expected to do? Even that line, any other duties as required, there is about a 20% maximum of it, but it's got to be related to what they actually do. It can't be something completely different. Okay, so what's their job role? Have they got all the equipment they need to do it? And also the confidence. Sometimes you just need to tell them, I know you can do it, I'm there, I'll support you. They need to know what they can get out of it. So feedback, recognition. They need to know how it feeds into the vision. And they also need to know that what they contribute adds to that big picture. You need to tell them that. And finally, areas for growth and development, and that helps keep them engaged and keep them working for you, but continuing to improve. A few things just to ponder on. Now, with these things, these are things that I want you to just have a look at each of them in turn and just think, are you offering these to your staff? Okay, so just look at each of them in turn. Are you offering skill variety? Do they know exactly what their task is and how it fits in with everybody else? What about the significance of that task and how it fits in? And are you giving them plenty of feedback? And that feedback's got to be two-way. You've got to ask them too. How can I be a better manager? How can I be a better leader? How can I enable you? What is it you need from me? Tell me what I'm doing right. Two-way conversation, and give them some autonomy. So if you do all of those things, you're going to reduce things like your absenteeism and your turnover. Just to end up on, what I'd like you to do on that white handout is just have a look at the last page or two to do with rewards and recognition. All right, now there's quite a few ideas in there, and what I suggest you do is just go through it when you've got some quiet time and think about what could you do that you haven't tried already that may work with some people in your workplace. There is no one employee. Everybody has individual tastes, and those tastes vary. You know, they vary from time to time. If people have got kids, time off to be with their kids might be an important thing for them. For other people, it might be earning extra money or overtime. Your motivations vary in life, and they might vary from month to month. So find out from them what works for them. I've just got one criteria. Please try and avoid alcohol. Most businesses today are moving away to alcohol-free workplaces. So rewarding your staff with alcohol is not something I'd suggest you do. You know the traditional thing in WA is give somebody a slab as a currency. Think of some different ways around that. There are lots of things that you can try. So I think that's about it from me. If you want to talk to me or Vicky after this, we'll be out in the foyer if you want to ask us any questions. We've got lots of ideas of how we can help small businesses grow and expand. We can give an overview, run a training needs analysis, help you develop your business plans, or even just come in and facilitate some of your meetings just to get you back on track. And we'd enjoy doing it too. So thank you very much, everybody. And that's it. Thank you.